Hey, good afternoon and good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about leading a peer advisory group today, and we have some really just amazing panel members today just to help talk through what it means to lead a peer advisory group and what the differences are in some of those peer advisory groups as well. You see Mark and Jordan with me. Mark is my business partner with Journey. And Jordan's our content manager. She's the one that's put all this together so that we can be a resource for other people. We're going to go ahead and jump right in, though. And I'd like Lee to go ahead and introduce himself, and then we'll move to Genevieve and to Tina as well. Lee, go ahead and give us a light introduction of who you are and really what Convene's all about.
Yeah, hello, everyone. My name is Lee Truax, and I work with Convene, which is an organization that provides, as you're going to hear about today, the facilitated peer advisory groups. I am the Vice President of Business Development and International Initiatives, and happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, Lee. And Genevieve, how about you?
Sure. My name is Genevieve Rohan. I am a senior executive recruiter with Vistage Worldwide, an international organization with locations in 35 countries, 44,000 global members. And what I do is recruit people who want to become professional coach facilitators.
Thanks a lot. And Tina, of course, last but not least.
Absolutely. So Tina Corner-Stoltz, I'm the founder of LX Council, which stands for Leader Exchange Council. We are actually a licensing model where we teach people how to create and run successful groups nationally, internationally. It doesn't matter. Virtual, in person, doesn't matter. Niche or traditional, doesn't matter. And also author of 2 books about this topic and have a podcast about it.
Great. Thank you. And just for everybody that's in the audience, just to go ahead and let's put some ground rules in place and really just a request in place. So if you're listening to this right now, listen with the ears. If you're thinking about what would it take for me to become a leader or a chair, facilitator, moderator, there are a lot of different names. What would it take for me to become a leader of a peer advisory group? And is this something that I'm interested in? So that's a question you may be considering yourself stepping into this. And then the other thing you might be considering, if you've already answered that question and it's an area of interest for you, and that's why you're here, is what are the differences between groups? And you have 3 different individuals right now on this panel that lead different models, different types of groups. So each one of them is going to be able to give you a unique perspective on the different types of groups that might be available. What we need from you. So if you're listening right now and you have questions along the way, please go ahead and type them in the chat. And what's going to happen is you're going to type your questions in the chat, and Jordan's going to do the best she can to take those questions, and she's going to push them up on the screen for us. I'm going to do my best I can to pay attention to the questions that are on the screen and rotate around with each one of these panel members so that they can go ahead and give you the answers or the information that you're looking for. So the question that you're thinking about, if you're listening right now and you're not sure if you should ask it as we go, push it in the chat, because it might be a question that somebody else is thinking that they're not at a place where they're willing to push it into the chat. There are no necessarily wrong questions. Jordan will do her best to grab the questions that are going to be most appropriate for the broader audience. If your question doesn't get asked, don't have your feelings hurt. Don't get mad at me. What you will know is that each one of these panel members has available to them your question in the comments on this particular LinkedIn event. And after the event, they have the opportunity to go back through and answer those questions and maybe even respond to you individually if they feel like there's a way for them to give you the information that you need as well. So all that to say, please ask questions along the way. We did gather from many of you some questions ahead of time, as well as some questions that we know are commonly asked that we're going to use as we roll through this event. Let me go ahead and jump in now with our first question. And Tina, I'd love to just ask you this question to start. And for anybody that's considering leading a peer advisory group, why would they want to lead a peer advisory group? What types of things drive a person to say, this is for me?
That's a big question, Eric. So, so many things, and I'm sure my colleagues here will add. But here's what comes to mind is number one, that you really love and are passionate about working with whatever type of group you want. So let's just say traditional business owners, for example. Let's say you love working with them. You want to be a giver. This is very much an abundant mentality type of role. And because it's not about you, it's about everybody else in the group. So you're not consulting in this role, in essence, while you're moderating, facilitating, running the meeting. So you first have to really look at where your passion is. And particularly, you may want to do this because you want to build something, that you want to build groups that, first of all, can leverage maybe what you're already doing. Let's say you have a consulting business, an advisory business, and this is a great thing you can do to leverage because it's a reoccurring income stream for you. And it gives you a lot of peace of mind. It's very resistant to recession, very recession proof. And when you do a really great job, it's extremely, extremely rewarding. So to kind of sum up a little bit, you might do it for just the standpoint of where your passion lies, and your enthusiasm, et cetera. You might do it for financial reasons. You might do it for lifestyle reasons, because how much or little you do can be very personal to what your goals are. So you could just do a group. You might want to do like multiple groups. You may want this to be really full-time versus kind of part-time. It can be very lifestyle balanced based on location and that kind of thing. And the other thing is to leverage your expertise and your background. It's a way to, as you've experienced in your business professional life, a way to leverage that into next season.
That's great, Tina. I like how you touched on having an understanding of the role that you want to or able to play when you're actually leading that peer advisory group too, and with that understanding, how that might actually fulfill some of those other passion or desires that you have in your own life.
Yeah,
that's great. Lee, how about you? I mean, same question. I know it's a big question, but I figured it's a question some people that are listening right now that are really sorting through, is this for me? So why would I want to become a peer group leader?
Yeah, and Tina did a great job of answering many of the reasons. I would say from the perspective of chairs that are doing this successfully with Convene, most of them are, seasoned executives who've built companies, led companies, generally really enjoyed that part of their journey and maybe in transition, because Convene also has a Christian-based component of it, a faith-driven component. Many of them feel called to help others, to develop their businesses, to fulfill their calling, to be high impact leaders, and to help others, in our case, to grow in their Christian faith as well. And so we come down to calling and just really enjoy helping others. And the final thing is, as Tina mentioned, it is a great revenue stream to add to your consulting or coaching business. And again, it's a way to continue in your desire to see others develop really exceptional businesses. And so it's just a really enjoyable experience from that perspective.
Yeah, and I like the insight you had there, Lee. Something that came to mind in the beginning, you talked about seasoned executives, and I know some of the other places that Journey's involved, that we're involved, a business owner might be thinking about what's next, or an executive might be thinking about what's next, and they may have owned a business for a period of time, or they may have led an organization in a certain role for a period of time. And it sounds like what you're saying is an option like a Convene or an LX Council or like a Vistage provides potentially that opportunity for that what's next portion of someone's career as well.
Often.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now, excuse me, Genevieve, how about you?
I would say I agree with everything. I say people become peer group leaders because they have a lot of knowledge. Maybe they had some good and bad times along the way, and they want to share their knowledge, their passion for business. They feel a sense of fulfillment, gratification, being able to kind of grow businesses either in their local community or globally.
Great. Yeah, and I like even what you touched on. And I know we've heard a little bit about it so far. Is this opportunity to be a peer group leader? It's not necessarily just how do I lead a peer group at the local level. There may be individuals who are thinking global. There are individuals who are thinking remote as well in this. And it sounds like that's a consideration for someone who's answering that why question. That's great. For anybody that's joining now that didn't hear kind of the intro as we're jumping in, just a couple things to note. So we have 3 panel members here that you can see. Each one of them represent a different peer advisory group. And what we're discussing today really covers what it would be like or why you might even want to consider joining a peer advisory group as a leader. And we're going to talk through some of those differences and what's involved in that process if you were to lead a peer advisory group. Each one of these panel members is going to bring a perspective related to the particular peer advisory group that they represent. What we need from you, if you're in the audience, is please go ahead and ask any questions along the way. I would say it's probably a very rare opportunity. If this is something that you're considering, it's a very rare opportunity where you're going to have multiple different flavors, if you will, of peer advisory groups that are here from a neutral position, wanting to offer as much value or information as possible to you. So if it's something that you're considering, this might actually give you the answers to kind of direct you to say, okay, these ones might be the ones, or this one might be the one that I want to consider. But if we don't have the questions from you, we're not going to know what to ask. We do have some questions from people ahead of time that answered or responded to us, as well as some pre-planned questions that we'll ask along the way. On that note, I'm going to jump into another question. And really, let's kind of get to some of the details of it. What makes each particular group, and more importantly, what makes your group, if I ask each of you as a panel member, what makes your group different than the other options that are available in the market? Genevieve, why don't we kick off with you, and then we'll just go from there.
Sure. I would say we have 65 years of experience. We've got 35 countries. We've been doing this a long time. We have the infrastructure and support that's really world class. So at Vistage, we have speakers, subject matter experts who come in and speak to our groups. We have over 1,000 fully vetted speakers that we send across the globe to present to groups. It's like a little mini MBA course when you attend a Vistage meeting. So that's really wonderful. We also have a big international networks. We have groups where a member, a chair, a speaker can go and ask a question of our members that are part of affiliate groups. They might be experts in marketing, finance, construction, real estate. They might be female business leaders. They might be, we have groups for people who are spiritual. We have groups for nonprofit executives. Those are some of the things that differentiate Vistage. Another thing we have is an 11-day learning and development program called the Academy, Your First Year. Keep in mind, close to 10% of our chairs stay with us 20 years. And so oftentimes we do a big international meeting every year where people fly in from around the globe. We just had one in San Diego. There were 800 people who are here learning from one another. So at Vistage, we've got connections, we've got learning and development. We have amazing members who stick with us. Some members have been with us 30, 40, and 50 years. So at Vistage, we kind of have a continuity, a way of doing things, a support structure and infrastructure that will do your billing for you, your marketing. We help do everything we can to ensure that you have as large a practice as you want. Kind of what Tina had said. If you want to have one group and do it amazingly well, and your members benefit from you, we welcome you. If you want to have 6, 8, we have one guy who has 10 groups. You're going to make a lot more money, but you're going to also be kind of working a lot more. So that's kind of what differentiates Vistage. It's up to you. It's flexible, but we've got the infrastructure and support.
Yeah, so it sounds like, the word that came to mind with Vistage is there's a legacy in terms of the timeline that Vistage has been around. It sounded like a kind of the breadth of Vistage, pretty broad, but then there sounded to be an amount of depth that's there as well. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Tina, what makes LX Council different for someone that's considering leading a group? What makes it different?
The main thing is, first of all, my experience in 2005 started with a franchise, not anybody on this call, someone else. And that is my experience where I learned the challenges that those running groups face and how important it is that you choose the right organization for you. So what I developed was something different, which is a licensing model. So the concept around the licensing model is it's your brand front and center. We're behind you with all the support. So if you're already doing consulting and you want to tie the peer groups into your brand, that allows you to do that. And basically we certify you. So we have an academy also. You go through it, you get certified, you actually practice running those meetings. So you are ready to go and have that experience behind you, the jitters out of the way, so you're successful. And we teach it in a way that allows you to successfully launch. One of the biggest issues is launching groups. So there's a lot of failure rate in the industry. The failure rate is extremely high. And what I mean by that is less than 30% actually get launched in their groups, regardless, kind of across the board. Our success rate is 98.5%. So our licensed partners, they launch, and they do that in a way because we teach them how to do it through partnerships. So with that, their brand, we're behind them. They're supported by us. They have a private community. It's continuous learning. There's weekly and monthly calls. We are very innovative. So the innovation comes from the virtual or hybrids or in person, extremely niche groups that fit your passion. You decide what you're going to charge. You make the decisions like you own and like a business owner. These are your groups. We help guide you with best practice as well. We have a national conference for continuous learning, because one of the things is that you will not be able to keep your groups together unless you continually improve and grow. It's one of the number one reasons that a member will leave is the moderator of their groups. So those are like the big key differences. This is a good place for you if you like to be able to run your own thing and have something to sell when you're ready to move on or transition. And with a licensing model, our licensed partners put 60% and more of the revenue in their pockets because it's a licensing model. So those are, I would say, the biggest differences. We teach a half a day, so it's very core on running the meetings. If you want to do coaching or not, that's up to you. If you want to have speakers or not, that's totally up to you. It really depends upon the type of group that you want to do. So what you're probably walking away with, tons of flexibility, but huge success rate and track record in doing this. So.
Yeah, that word used at the end, that word flexibility, is what came to mind as I heard you talk about the model. The other thing that you touched on that I'm not sure everybody that's in the audience, I know myself, I wouldn't have initially considered it, is the difference between, is it a model that I'm licensed to run? Am I an independent contractor? Is it a franchise? I mean, there's all sorts of different approaches that I imagine different groups can take. So I appreciate you bringing up the specifics as it relates to the license model.
When you have with the panel, we're each different in that front, right? So I'm licensing, Genevieve is the 1099 model. And of course, Lee, you're going to talk about what you are, which is a great complement to each other.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So Lee, let's jump in. I mean, what makes your group an option that's different from some of the other options that someone could choose to lead?
Well, it's hard to differentiate from Vistage because we were birthed out of Vistage. And so there's so much commonality with the Vistage experience and high respect for Vistage chairs and their organization. And so when you look at Convene, we've been doing what we're doing for 28 years. And as I said, have a lot of common ground in the format. We do use speakers, subject matter experts. We assist you in recommending certification as a coach. So you can do your one-to-ones, your chair coach opportunities. But I would say when we look at differences, one of the biggest differences that Convene offers as an opportunity is to engage faith-driven leaders who want to work through biblical principles of how to run a business and want to grow in their faith and want to encourage those in their membership, in their walk, in their Christian faith as well. So that was the intention when Convene was born, to add the Christian faith components. And so we provide, at this point, 15 years of content that is based on both business expertise and some common leadership books and authors out there that you'd encounter in the marketplace, but also then some from the Christian faith as well. And so that would be a differentiator for the Convene experience. We also do back office billing. We provide an independent contractor relationship where you exercise the chair services per Convene's model. And it's just a great opportunity, again, to add that component to your business and the revenue stream and the joy, frankly, of helping others to grow and develop and to be better at business and to be better in their leadership. And so we operate out of the servant leadership model. And so, again, take from that stream all the way from Greenleaf into biblical principles of leadership. And so, but high respect for everyone here on the panel and what they're doing. And by the way, there are so many business leaders going it alone that my recommendation is get out there and serve, because there's a lot of need.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate both the feedback. It almost sounds like from your perspective, there's a need for people to lead these groups. It's just a matter of finding what the right type of group is for you, but the need's there regardless.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing, Lee, that you mentioned that was interesting is the relationship, to Convene, maybe early on, kind of what it was birthed out of, as you mentioned, to Vistage. So from your perspective, there's some commonality and structurally or some approaches there just because of having come from the same place, if you will.
Absolutely. Yes. Really, I mean, Vistage did an excellent job. So, absolute applause to the Vistage model, but just saying, if you want to, execute out of your Christian based beliefs, Convene offers that option. Great.
One thing I just want to call out now for anybody that's listening as an audience member. So what we're talking about today is leading a peer advisory group. And we're talking through some of the differences, but we're also going to talk about what that means from a monetary or a time investment standpoint. We're going to talk about what it actually means to lead a peer advisory group. But if you're listening right now and you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a second, I thought I was learning about what it means to be a member of a peer advisory group. That's okay. First of all, continue to listen, because maybe you're supposed to be here for this reason anyway. So continue to listen. That actually might be the right place for you to be. But also consider, we had another event last month where we talked through, and we had panel members related to peer advisory groups. And we talked through what some of the differences were to be part of, as a member of peer advisory group too. So all to say is, don't leave now if this is interesting to you, because maybe you're supposed to be here. But know if you're disappointed because you're not getting the answers you were looking for, we have another event. You can find it on Journey Alliance's business page that you can go ahead and listen through as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question. And this is one I think a lot of people are considering if they want to become a peer advisory group leader. And they're thinking to themselves, what's the time investment I should expect to make if I were to lead a peer advisory group? Because there's the idea of this is what it takes to actually facilitate or lead a group, but then there's all the time that may be there behind the scenes that sometimes people don't consider, and that might look different for each one of our groups here that are represented. Lee, why don't you go ahead and kick off for us? What's the time investment someone should expect to make in leading a peer advisory group?
Yeah, and obviously it depends on the individual from the standpoint of their background, how much experience they've had in facilitation and leading groups and so forth. But generally, we say it's an 8-hour experience. So it's a full day experience. So there's 8 hours out of your month. Consider in the early stages in particular, 8 hours of preparation. So there's another day out of your month. And then we do one-to-one coaching, which can be 60 to 90-minute sessions. And so if you've got 10 members, simple times 10, you've got another, amount of hours there. So generally, I would say it's like a heavy full week of work for a group. And just beyond that, if you were to run 2 or 3 groups, we do have Convene chairs that are running up to 3 groups. I don't know that we have any that are running 4, just because of the heavy lifting of just building those relationships and peer coaching and so forth that happens outside of your forum day. But that's generally what it looks like. And it's a great, again, addition to the other things that you may be doing in your consulting firm or your executive coaching practice or so forth. So it really is something someone can do, quote unquote, part-time. But it is also something where you can work up to have multiple groups and do it full-time.
Yeah. So a couple of bullet points that I heard from you. Of course, there's the in-person group time that you mentioned, 8 hours for Convene. There's the prep time. And I know anybody with coaching or consulting background realizes that they likely get more efficient or more effective at that. So expect to invest a little bit more upfront while you're learning the process and becoming comfortable. But then you also mentioned this this coaching time. So it sounds like part of the convene model is not just the group itself, but it's the individual connections that are happening outside of the group as part of the model that a group leader has to plan on investing as well.
Yeah. So if you've got 10 members, just consider 10 more hours that you're going to devote travel time. A lot of that nowadays, thanks to COVID, happens in a Zoom window. So you may or may not be face to face. I still I'm an old fashioned guy. I love the face to face. But I find Zoom coaching sessions also to be extremely effective.
Great. Genevieve, how about you? What's the time investment that someone should expect to make?
Yeah, well, what's interesting with Vistage is we have groups that are, like Lee said, our CEO groups for the bigger, more established CEOs. They have a board meeting every month and the chair will do one-to-ones. That might be about 40 hours FaceTime a month, 1 day of prep work and responding to emails. So let's say 48 hours a month for a CEO group. Small business owners have 8 half-day meetings and then 4 full board meetings every month. Then we have a key executive group. It's an 8-hour meeting once a month. You get in, you work with those second in commands, you send them home. You're not obligated to do one-on-one coaching. If they want it, they can get it. They pay the chair. We take care of all that. We have TA groups. It's a 4-hour meeting once a month. We have emerging leaders and advancing leaders. This is an 8-hour day every other month. And then we have Vistage Inside for that flexibility and freedom where you might work with an organization and you determine with the CEO, are there 12 to 16 members of the same company? Do they want speakers every month? Do they want one-to-ones? So there is quite a bit of flexibility within the Vistage model.
I see. So from a time investment standpoint, it sounds like the kind of the desires or maybe even the capabilities of that group leader will lend themselves to determining what that time investment looks like because of that flexibility.
Well, if you have a CEO group, I'd say it's about 40 hours FaceTime a month. So there are groups with different requirements and you get to choose. And we love it. If you have one of everything, you can go to a party. And if you talk to an entrepreneur, a CEO of a big company or somebody in middle management, you might have a place for them to go. So that's one thing I really like about the Vistage model. You choose how many groups you have. Our average chair has 2. I like above average chairs. My chairs with 4, 5, 6 groups. So yeah, it's an income, it's a revenue split with Vistage, and our chairs 10% of our chairs do this almost 20 years. Our average chair stays with us 10 years, and busy, amazing people who could be consulting and making a lot of money consulting wouldn't do this if they didn't love it and weren't compensated very nicely.
Yeah. And so it sounded like on that CEO leader, that 40 hours, there's some commonality there from what I heard Lee say when he was talking about kind of that full week as well. Okay. I appreciate that. Tina, of course, I'm going to ask you the same question. Right before I do that, Paul, hey, thanks for joining us. I do see your question there. Jordan, I would love maybe after Tina goes ahead and guides us through her answer to this question, if we're able to take Paul's question and go ahead and push that one on the screen as well. I think that's a great question for the group. But Tina, from your perspective, what's the time investment that a group leader should expect to make?
Yeah, so just to put a stake in the ground, there's a different time investment to launch versus running the group. So I know we're answering running the group, but for the audience, they need to know that there is a difference. And running the group in our model is typically one group takes 16 hours a month, and that's it. The second group is then 10 hours a month. So in essence, you can do 2 hours, 26 hours. In those hours includes all the support calls, the continuous learning within our community. So it's all encompassing. The reason that the hours are less is because there's no coaching. And if you do the coaching, that's totally up to you. The retention rate of the members without coaching on average across the entire community is 88+%. So the coaching is really something. If you want to do it, you can do it. And if not, it's not required or necessary for an excellent member experience to do. So it goes back to depend on how much time, and to make sure that you get, if you do coaching, that you get paid appropriately for that. So really, whether you do virtual or in person, a hybrid, et cetera, that's still the same number of hours. That's why with our licensed partners, they can do a lot of groups. if they choose, and still have part-time, to do consulting or anything else that's on their docket.
Yeah, so that sounds unique compared to the other two models. And just for
Mhm.
everybody listening, we are trying to present so you can hear both the similarities if you're sizing up what type of peer advisory group you'd want to lead if given the opportunity, but also some of those differences because, like was mentioned, I believe in some way by each panel member in the beginning, this is as much about how you want to serve other business leaders as how this fits for you and where you're at professionally and also from a lifestyle standpoint. So Tina, I really appreciate you calling out some of those differences. And even that statistic, that was an interesting one, 88% plus retention rate on your group members. And that's without the coaching being part of the actual experience or the overall experience.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So as we're pulling up this next question here, Tina, I'm going to leave this one with you. And I'm Jordan. The other one, Bruce, thank you for joining. I see that you have a question that's related to number of seats in each group. Jordan, if you don't mind, and maybe you're already 2 steps ahead of me, that's a great question maybe for us to tee up as the next question after this one. But Paul had a question. If someone launches a group, is it market protected by some type of region or territory? And I'd love to kind of go through each panel member with this question too.
You wanted me to start?
Please, yeah.
Okay. I love this question. So for our licensed partners, no, it's not necessary. So the reason it is not necessary is when we talk with potential licensed partners, we really get into detail the type of group that you want to do and the type of groups and where they are and it's how niche it is, et cetera. But the biggest differentiator for us is partnerships, and that's how you're able to launch. And in the partnerships, and this is a relationship driven business that you're in. The relationship you have with the members, it's not about a hard sale or anything like that. And so because of those partnerships, they're unique to you. And that's why a territory is not necessary. So you have carte blanche, particularly if you're virtual or the niche group you want to do or traditional CEO groups. But one of the things that we emphasize, this was very near and dear to my heart to be sure happens, is that our community is extremely collaborative. So what that means is let's just say Washington, D.C., where we have multiple licensed partners, they actually all work together in order to support each other. But we will not add a licensed partner there unless the other licensed partners are on board with doing that. So this is about leveraging relationships. It's about that they work together. It's not about them being in competition with each other, and they are not going after the same type of member. So that allows for that collaboration, and it allows for them to share resources and content and whatever it is they might do, and even refer each other members when they're not right fit. So that's why we don't have a territory. Because one, you don't need it, and two, it's because we're a very collaborative environment. So
that's good. So it sounds like it's clearly less about protecting a territory and more about how a person builds a group. And because each leader is going to come with a different network, different experience, different approach to the group altogether, they're likely going after a different type of member that they feel that they can support. And if they bump into someone that isn't a fit for them, they likely know who they can refer that person to.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. Thank you. Lee, same question for you. Are the groups market protected by some type of region or territory?
Yeah, so as an independent contractor, we do not provide market protection, if you will, other than your great relationship with the people that come your way. We have cities that have multiple chairs, multiple convened teams, and so often it's a matter of fit. As you come in, for example, through the website and inquire about membership within Convene, that's in the back of the mind of some of the people that you talk to is how does the personality fit with the chairs that are in your region? And so one other thing I'll mention in the category of differentiation, and I think, again, we have more common ground in our hope to serve people than we have in our different models and all those things. And, at the end of the day, it's people served that gives us all great joy. But we have every two times a year we bring the chairs together, and it's really an amazing time for inspiration and connection and strategizing, and learning best practices from each other. And so it is a collaborative environment. I think also the Christian faith links us together. There's prayer time for one another and really development of those relationships on that level as well. And so in some sense, competition, frankly, even between the other organizations on the call and beyond, is really not what we're about. What we're about is finding a fit for the individual where they can be served, grow their business, grow in their leadership, and grow in their walk and relationship in their Christian faith. And so from that perspective, it's a little foreign to talk about market protection when we're talking about helping one another. And I'd agree with Tina. There's more value in partnering than there is in being, quote unquote, protected in a territory, which is more like a franchise model, which is not what we are.
Understood. Yeah, good feedback on that. And even just, I like that you highlighted again that collaboration component, not even necessarily just within Convene as an example, but recognizing within, let's call it the peer advisory ecosystem, and those that might also be a better fit altogether, that there's a potential for collaboration there, and making sure that the members, and then of course the leaders in this case, are supported with the right group.
Yeah, and in my recruiting, and I'm sure it's true the rest of the panel, I've talked to people who have said, I'm checking out Vistage, I'm checking out, others, and looking at different experiences. And my goal is not to say, well, we're so much better than anybody else. My goal is to say, well, where do you fit? What do you like?
Mhm.
What's the flow and relationship that you will have with your member that's encouraged by the organization? And frankly, again, as I said before, I'd much rather see you living in a membership with one of these organizations than going it alone in isolation.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's great. Genevieve, how about you? I mean, anything different from a Vistage perspective?
Probably it is. So we track everything, and we do a lot of selecting people based on the market needs, and we'll go into a city. So we started in Wisconsin 65 years ago, and we've got maybe 18 to 20% penetration in cities like a Milwaukee. But we still have chairs telling us there are people not in Vistage groups. Please bring in additional people to this community. So we give every one of our chairs a free seat in Salesforce so they can see every single person. Let's use Denver for an example. They can see everybody who's already in Vistage. We say, don't ask those people to be part of your group. You can use them as referral sources. God bless you. Go out. They'll be ambassadors for you when you have your event. And so we let people put up to 200 prospects in their name. And that's one of the nice things about Vistage. We do buy a lot of leads. We have a lot of prospects. We have a lot of relationships with people. And we do pay people to be host chairs for other new chairs in the community to kind of shepherd them in and say, here's some things I saw that worked. This is really good in our market. We also do reward our chairs for handing off members they can't use, for referring other chairs into the community. So anyone interested partnering with Vistage should reach out to some people in the community and say, why do you do this? Why are you part of Vistage, Convene, LX Council, and hear what people are going to tell them. So ours is a 1099 independent contractor opportunity. We have a database you can search and say, I'm going to look for a bunch of people doing between 50 and 80 million within 20 miles of my home zip code. And then we can help you kind of target people and get out there. So 1099 independent contractor role, you are your boss. If you want somebody who lives 7 hours away and is going to drive every month to your meeting, take them. That's totally fine. We have members who fly from state to state because they love their group. And when they move, they get it written into their new employment contract. They get to stay part of their original Vistage group. So, location, I would recommend start your first group close to your home, because you may be doing this 30, 40, 50 years, and you probably don't want to be commuting in Minnesota in the winter.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting that you just shared with us too, I hadn't really thought about that, but even though there isn't necessarily a market protection in place, there's the ability to create awareness for other group leaders that are within your same market, that you're already in discussion with a particular individual, so that you're not accidentally tripping over each other if that person's in a similar network as you. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, and we do have, if you got two hospital CEOs who are competing for the same patients and doctors, We have Vistage chair group meetings where all of our chairs meet locally at least every other
Yeah.
month. And they'll often come and say, hey, I have somebody I can't use, but my goodness, they're trying to grow their business. They need help. How about you take them? And so we do see this sense of collaboration. And again, Tina mentioned it. When you come from a place of abundance, when you feel like, oh my God, I am doing my calling. These people are amazing. I can't provide them with guidance because there's a competitor. I'm going to find them a home. And that's a big part of, I think, any of our communities, doing what's right for the member because they're the ones who need the guidance and assistance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Hey, if you're in the audience right now and you're listening, I think one of the unspoken things that I'm hearing is you're hearing from each one of these panel members about what the experience is like as a peer advisory group leader, kind of in between the lines on some of these questions. I mean, I know for myself, and I've been around some amount of peer advisory space, some of the things that I'm hearing about are brand new for me that I really hadn't considered myself. So if you're considering leading a peer group, not only are you getting answers right now to questions, especially those that you might be asking if you type them in the chat, but also just by listening, you can get a feel for what some of that experience might be. And I would just use it as a request. If you have questions, if you're listening right now and you're wondering what it would be like to be a peer advisory group leader, please type them in the chat. Now, we likely won't get to all the questions as you start to type them in now. But what's going to happen is each one of these panel members has the opportunity after this event, could be today, could be early next week, they can go to the event on LinkedIn and they can still answer your questions there in the chat. So please, if you have a question, it doesn't get answered, don't worry. I'm sure somebody will double back and be able to answer your question for you. Now, if you're here right now and you are here because you were considering joining a group, not necessarily leading a group, that's okay. I mentioned this earlier, but if you weren't in, I want to say it again. You still might need to be here. Maybe this is the right meeting for you to be in or the right event for you to be in. But there's also another event that you can check out that we did last month that talked about the different types of peer advisory groups and what it would be like to join them as a member as well. I do want to jump in. So Bruce had a question earlier that I thought was a great question. And it's what's the suggested or recommended number of seats in each group, and why is that the suggested number? Genevieve, why don't we start with you on this one?
Yeah, I would say typically our groups, we would say 12 is about doing well. 14 to 16 is typically ideal. In our emerging leaders and advancing leaders groups, that's more curriculum based. We'll have a speaker and then they kind of get into the subject in the afternoon. Those groups could be as high as 30 people. Now, I do have chairs of CEO groups and small business owner groups that have great demand. They might have 20 to 22 people in a group, but we highly recommend when you get to 14, start thinking about starting a second or a third group. You'll have more time to meet individually with each person and kind of give people support. So I'd say 12 to 14 is probably the ideal size in a Vistage group.
Yeah, it's great. Great feedback there. Lee, what says you on this one in terms of number of seats in each group and why?
Yeah, well, hello, Bruce. I haven't talked to you in a long time. We do know each other, which is just a small world kind of thing. But generally, you can launch with 5 full-paying members as you're building your group. We recommend 10 to 12, and agreeing with what was previously said, 15 is probably, you're getting on the too large side of things, just because you want to give people time to develop their relationship and to contribute. And a lot of the members come to the table not only wanting to receive, but also to contribute to other members around the table. And so once you get beyond 15, it becomes really hard to do that, even in a full day. One other point of clarification, Eric, if I can, and I appreciated this being brought up. I use the example of the full CEO Forum Day, which is our full day experience for CEOs and executive leaders of larger corporations or companies. We do offer different formats for half day, and we also offer an online virtual experience. So we have virtual groups that have been launched as well. And again, my heart is get in a group, lead a group, get involved, help others.
That's great. So it sounds like some commonality in when you're looking at kind of the upper end of group size as what was previously shared. However, a level of comfort with a smaller group size as well, if that's really what fits best for that particular leader that's starting the group.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're not thinking in terms of this, your revenue is constrained by your size of group as well. So if you only have 8 full paying members, you are not going to have the same revenue stream as 10, 12, or 15. But again, it's a matter of fit and how you're growing your practice and what your goals are.
Yeah, that's good. And you're planting a seed for a question after this. But Tina, of course, I want to have this conversation with you first. You know, the seed that you planted, Lee, we are going to talk money. I'm told you're not supposed to talk money openly, but we are going to talk money. That's the question that comes after this, because we do, if anybody's listening right now, this conversation is surrounding what it takes or what it's like or what would be involved if you're going to lead a peer advisory group. And so was mentioned by different panel members to get to this point, but you may be just joining in. Tends to be individuals that maybe have had an executive career, maybe they've owned a business, maybe they currently have a consulting or a coaching practice. And so we're really talking about those types of individuals that are saying to themselves, I've heard about or I know about these peer advisory groups, and why not me? Why not lead one myself? And so what we've done is we've asked, and each one of these individuals has been gracious in giving us their time to talk to individuals that are currently and actively seeking out individuals to lead peer advisory groups. So you're hearing from the people that are truly looking for you, if that's you. And so we're talking about the things that you want to consider if you're going to lead a group. All that to say, get ready because we're going to talk money next. But Tina, for you, what about the suggested number of seats in LX Council model?
Well, one of the, I think, added on questions is why the number. And so the thing to consider is it's all about the member experience. So you might reach a certain number. 2 things to think about. One is typically the number has to do with you want enough diversity around the table for diversity of thought, real diversity for perspective, et cetera. And you may need to add a member or so in order to round out that diversity. And it could be an experience, sophistication, whatever it might be. But you also want a number that doesn't like interfere with the intimacy of it really being a true like peer group experience, because of the type of discussions that are typically occurring, very confidential, very vulnerable. And if you have too big of a room, that can start to alter that. You, as somebody running the group, you're going to be sophisticated enough to understand, you know what, I think this is my limit without sacrificing the member experience. So the numbers, yes, there's proven numbers about what you've heard about in a group. We typically teach, it depends, 8 to 12, but you've got to start to watch how frequently do members show up, how much do members, miss. So if you have a group of 12 and you end up with 10 all the time and you really want 12 in the meeting, then maybe you go to 14 because you're going to end up with your 12, right? So there is a strategy around it, and it's going to be unique to the type of group you're doing as well. So virtual, no, I wouldn't recommend you're going to have 14 on the screen, right? So virtual is going to be a smaller number. So there's a lot of things that play into it. It's just know that when you're thinking about it, there are pros and cons, but there are also best practices around the number.
Yeah, it's great. And so it sounds like there's what's called professional judgment that needs to be used as you're designing the group with the number within the group. And so it's the understanding if someone's going to lead a group, what I've heard now collectively from the 3 of you, there's a direct correlation, how much money you're going to make per group to the number of people that are in the group. And then there's professional judgment to know that you're there to serve the group members. And so having 30 group members probably isn't going to serve them well. And having 2 group members might not be the best use of your time if you have other options as well. So I appreciate even just some of the differences that you shared as well, Tina. We are going to talk now about money. So if someone's considering becoming a group leader, one of the things they're probably thinking to themselves is, what kind of income can I expect to make? But I want to do something that I would tell somebody normally not to do. I want to stack 2 questions. What kind of income can I expect to make? And how much money should I expect to invest? Because it depends on the model. I'm not really sure what that looks like. So how much income should I expect to make, and how much money should I expect to invest? I want to look at both of those questions, some of it for the sake of time as well. Tina, let's lead off with you, and then we'll just go around the room from there.
Great. So at LX Council, licensed partner licensing, it's the same fee annually. So it's 19,900, so 19,900. What happens is you pay that first, you get through our academy, and our licensed partners can actually launch in 60 days. So you're going to actually be able to, let's say 60 to 120, start your groups. You get paid immediately because it's your money, right? If you start with, like Lee was talking about, if you start and launch with 4 members, all that revenue is yours. And so typically that is all recouped within 6 months because you keep 100% of the revenue. On the average, the dues are somewhere between $850 to $1,000 that our licensed partners are charging. And so super easy math. Let's just do 1,000. And that you do that and you have 2 groups. Basically, you're keeping, and what I mean by that, 2 groups of 12. So that's 12 grand, 144K, right? You have 2 groups, you minus out the 19,900, and you're literally left with a good, like 95% of the revenue is yours. So, that's kind of, not to make it too simple, but it really is simple math. Okay. Now, what's not incorporated into there is 2 things. Number one is we also teach that you have a one-time fee. So all kinds of reasons that's traditionally done, but that fee is yours. So that actually helps you recoup the time to sell the member, and also pay for anything that you might offer them, whether it's an assessment, the onboarding, we teach you to do orientation, and all of that. And so that one-time fee helps recoup that cost for you, but that's all your money as well. That is not in the number I just kind of quoted you. And then for our licensed partners, when the second year rolls around, it goes into a monthly. It's not the full amount up front. You just go into a monthly recurring fee with us, is what that is.
That's great. I really appreciate the level of detail that you shared there. If you're listening and you didn't catch all those details, of course, this is recorded, so go back, because I think Tina did a great job of really just lining out what to expect in terms of not only the investment, but really how it is that you're able to generate revenue in this type of a model. Genevieve, I'm going to ask you the same question, or questions, I should say. And Jordan, thank you for dealing with me stacking those questions, but we have them there on screen. How much money should the peer advisory group leader expect to make, and what should they expect to invest?
Sure. So I'll start first with how much does it cost, because everybody wants to know. So first, we ask that every new chair forms either an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp. If they already have one, that cost is off the table because it's a done deal. After that, we typically invest between $50,000 to $65,000. We hire a mentor chair. We buy leads. We host events. We pay for your business card. So it's a revenue split forever on, and our compensation is very clear. You can see exactly how much any chair in America makes based on what type of group they're leading and how many members they have. So I would say our one-time cost before attending Academy is a $2,500 investment. If someone sticks with us and launches their group, they get an incentive of $2,500. If they launch in less than 6 months, which more than half of our chairs do, we give them a bonus of $5,000. So I always tell my chairs, I'm like, don't come to me when you're super busy, traveling the globe, consulting, writing your book, and learning to become a professional golfer. Come to me when you've just finished a big consulting project. And now you have maybe 30 hours a week for the first 8 weeks to really get out and select amazing members. At Vistage, we want you you always start with either a CEO or a small business owner group. You go for the head of the company, because if you do that, they're going to want their key executives, their emerging leaders, to be part of a Vistage experience. We want you to make at least $100,000 every year from one group. And then you can add additional groups. We have a group that's an 8-hour meeting once a month. You can make $60,000 a year if you have 16 members in that group. And we've done studies at Vistage. Our new chairs tend to have small groups, very intimate. They take a lot of time processing issues. If you've been a chair 20, 30, 40 years, or you've had members who've been with you 10, 15, 20 years, you are going to go deep and you are going to go fast. So I would say Vistage is a one-time fee. And then after that, it's a revenue split from then on. So very simple, very easy math.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you giving some guidance as to, based off the group type, what somebody should expect to make per group based off some averages and just the data that you have. Lee, same question for you, just to round us out before we start to wrap up. How much money
Well,
should a leader expect to make, and what should they invest?
It couldn't have been made any easier, because Guinevere described a model that we incorporate as well, which is you're going to, make a revenue stream based on the amount of members you have around the table. There is a little bit of flexibility. We have a minimum charge whereby you can split revenues. And so that encourages keeping the price at a level that is market savvy, but also we look at the size of companies. So if you've got greater than 2 million in revenue, and you're going to have some flexibility as a chair to determine what the stage of growth the company is at, and whether or not you want to discount a little bit to help them to get in. And then with the understanding, of course, as their company grows, you're going to adjust to, if you will, full retail price. So there's a little bit of flexibility. But the numbers, again, that we're given, $60,000 for one group of size. And then if you have multiple groups, you can do the math, times 2 basically. And it is just like Vistage in the sense that it's a revenue split. For that revenue split, we provide you with your speakers. We provide you with ongoing marketing support. We provide you with a number of different services. As I already said, we do all your invoicing and booking and processing from a back office perspective. So that helps. But the other thing I would say is that we also, when I talked about those 2 times a year training sessions and connections for chairs, depending on your tier, meaning how many groups you have and what's your revenue stream, that may be fully scholarship. So that's another thing to consider for ongoing learning. To answer what should I expect to invest, it's a $10,000 investment. That includes your training, your initial training. That includes how do you go about recruiting and building your team, but it also includes a chair coach who sticks with you for a year, and they're experienced in building teams and successfully running a team. And so, again, I think that's common in some of the models, including Vistage, that you're going to have help. You're not going to be left kind of on your lonesome. We don't pat anybody on the back and say, good luck, now you know what to do, go do it. There is a lot of support and marketing campaigns, as well as events to seek out members and to grow your relationships in your marketplace. So it really is that one-time setup. It gets started, and then you're off to the races.
Great. I appreciate you sharing that. So if you're listening right now, we're getting ready to close out. If you've asked a question and it wasn't answered, don't worry. Each one of these panel members has the opportunity to go back through the chat and answer any of those questions that might not be answered for you. So if you sat here and you didn't want to ask the question because you were afraid your name was going to go on screen, no, I'm joking. But if you have a question that's in your head that you didn't ask, please go and just add it to the comments, even after this group. And any one of these panel members may go, or all of them may go and respond to your question as well. I want to give each panel member an opportunity, whether it be just that minute or 2 minutes, just to go ahead and close us out. Any final remarks, but also how can somebody who's listening to this get a hold of you so that they can get more information and learn what it would take to become a leader for a peer advisory group? Tina, if you could kick us off. Genevieve will go straight to you afterwards, and then Lee will finish up with you.
Great. First, any questions, just email me directly. So Tina, Tina at lxcouncil.com. Encourage you can go to the website. There's tons of free resources, like how to do this, why do this, how much time does it cost, take, all of that is there. You can even download our info packet from there that gives you, it's a 30 some odd page document that gives you all the details that we're kind of talked about today. And then also encourage you, as you're thinking about launching, go to it and, listen to my podcast. It's agnostic. I have guests on there that run groups that are not associated with LX Council. It doesn't matter. My goal is education. It's a deep dive in very narrow topics. So that's Mastermind Mastery podcast. And also my book is a great resource. Your Seat at the Table. You'll see that on the website. About it's also neutral, but just what to consider on how to create and run groups well. And just those resources are there, because I'm back to Lee, because I appreciate everything he said. It's just make sure you just don't go it alone. Just associate with someone. This is not easy to do, even though it looks easy. It is not, but the reward is there. This is a profession, and it's something you do not learn overnight. It takes years to be really good at it. And that's why you'll keep your members. So, but that's how you can reach me if you're interested on any conversation at all.
Thank you, Tina. Genevieve, how about you?
Yeah, if you want to reach me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn, Genevieve Rohan at Vistage.com. There are 8 recruiters that cover the nation. So if you're East Coast or West Coast, I have coworkers who will be reaching out to you directly. I would just like to say we also have a lot of free events on our website. We have a great conversation coming up with Marcus Buckingham. I can never say names right. We've had Colin Powell, Indira Nuri. We have some amazing speakers. And as a service to the community, we say, come to our website. We have podcasts. We have a YouTube channel. There's all kinds of amazing information out there. And even within our networks and things, we share a lot of information that's going to benefit the community because, again, it's a place of abundance. We're so fortunate to have so many amazing people as the group leaders and as members. We want to share that knowledge and wealth with others around the country. So feel free, reach out on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Any questions you have, if I'm not smart enough to answer them, I will put you in touch with the appropriate person and, refer you to other organizations if it's a better fit for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Genevieve. And Jordan, thank you. I saw that you went ahead and put Tina's email address directly in the chat for everybody, which will show up there on LinkedIn as well. Genevieve's information there for LinkedIn as well. So Lee, why don't you go ahead and round us out? How can people get a hold of you for additional information?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn's easy. That's, I think, what we're presenting today. So I'm Lee C. Truax on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. Email is lee.truax, Truax, at convenenow.com, which is the extension, also the website, convenenow.com/leader. If you just want to go out there and connect, someone will reach out to you and you'll have a first conversation. Then you might end up talking to me about further details. We have an onboarding process that's kind of a 3-part discovery where you get a chance to actually experience online what a mini forum day could look like, just to give you a sense of, is this really a fit for you? And I'd love to talk to you. I'm sure all of us would love to talk to you. And our ultimate goal is go out there and serve somebody. In the joy of serving is how you'll really find out why people stick with Vistage, Convene, and LX Council. And so I just encourage you to connect and find your fit.
Thank you. Thank each of you, Lee, Tina, Genevieve, for participating in this panel and just serving those that are listening and will watch this in the future as they size up whether or not they want to lead a peer advisory group. And I think we now have given some clear direction for them, not just on why, but how they can take those steps forward. For everybody that listened, added comments or questions, or maybe listening going forward, thank you very much. Our goal for Journey Alliance is to continue to be a resource. And while we're normally a resource for business owners and business leaders, this one's a little bit different where we're also trying to be a resource for those that are supporting those business owners in that community as well. If you have any questions for me, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Jordan Roberts is the one that puts all of this together, puts a lot of effort into it. I just have to show up and not say anything really dumb, and I just did, but I just have to show up. So thank you, Jordan, for putting everything together, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.